And we're joined by Dave Wakeling, the English Beat. How are you today?
I am fantastic.
Well, another turn of another year. It's an amazing time. Just reminiscing with you, the very first album that came out. I was doing the college radio thing, producing the concerts. Very exciting time, mid to late 70s.
Just heading back into it now with a new album just finished on the winter solstice. Going to be mastered next week and come out in the spring, March if we're lucky, April if we're not. And, well, who cares? It'll come out soon. And,
How many years has it been?
Too many to count. Yeah. But it's funny, thinking about that, schedules sometimes make more sense measured in heartbeats than by a stopwatch, you know. Yeah. What's happened, quite by accident, we made a record in between touring and then had to tour some more to keep funding the record. In some ways it was frustrating, but in other ways it meant you'd got a month off to listen to it before you went back. And it started to remind me of my old woodwork teacher and my dad, who used to say things like, cut a little, test a lot, or cut a little, measure a lot. So instead of having those usual, I know, try this in the studio when something's wrong, and just like put someone else on, we had the opportunity to try all those things out in your head and find out what worked and then come back to the tracks. And there was a degree of satisfaction because all the ideas you'd got fit like a glove because you'd had a chance to work on it and practice the part, you know?
So very organic.
Slowly evolving organic, yeah. It wasn't rushed, but at the same time it didn't become pedantic because once we were in, we didn't have much time, so we'd got to knock stuff down and then check what we'd got. Well,
did you write these songs just all, you write all the time, or these?
Yes, I write all the time. This is from the collection. There were 40 songs that made the first cut, and then they got whittled down to 20 with the help of some friends. And then with a wider circle of friends and musicians, they got whittled down to 13, thinking that a baker's dozen, we'd end up with 12 good ones. But we've ended up with 13 smashers. One didn't fall by the way, which it's rare that happens. It's rare that happens. And in fact, the one that everybody thought, oh, that could be the one, it suddenly surged forward, as they often do, because you get worried about it and pay more attention, surged forward, and it's up in the top half of the album, I think, in terms of what people like. I'm really pleased with it. The songs sound, from a distance, like they sounded in my head when I was writing them, and that's very satisfying. I can sing along with the orchestra in my head, and it's pretty close to represented on the record. Now, it's dozens of other people and dozens of other people's takes on my vision of things, so you're always going to have that, but you can add their little bits of colour without getting in the way of your vision of it, so they don't end up scatting over it or noodling. There's a distinct lack of noodling on the record. We tried to make, there's a lot of notes, but we made every note count. And where I heard recorders in my head, I got somebody in who played great recorder. And the same, there's Barry saxes on there, there's a tuba, there's piccolos, and I didn't want a synthesizer, I wanted the full screech of piccolo. Yeah. And there's only one synthesizer sound on the whole record, and that's because we wanted a synthesizer sound there for about 4 bars. The rest of it is organic instruments played well, and local studio, NRG, where they made a lot of famous records.
That's where you cut it?
Yeah, so I got to use...
My office is like 2 blocks from there.
Oh, good Lord, I've been there.
No Ho Arts District.
Yes, no ho, bro. Yes, I've been there the last couple of years. Any time there was a day free, I was in there. And so we got to use their classic list of gear from the 60s and 70s, guitars, amps, the lot, microphones. This one's from Cologne in 1962. They're like bottles of wine, you know, these microphones worth tens of thousands of dollars. So we've got to avail ourselves of the finest analog gear and then match that up with the cutting edge of digital mixing, with the bloke who runs Neve sending apps to the mixer as he was doing it. They're trying to get it so as you can still hear the sound of a Neve board as an app added to a track. You got to be careful though. It can get that warm, it can sound like syrup. So we tried it. It worked quite well. You got to be very gentle with it though.
So do you produce this with the help of an engineer? Or?
Well, I mean, he took the part of the producer in the end, really, Kyle Hoffman. It was sort of co-produced. Nothing went on it if I didn't like it, that's for sure. Who just keep whining till they stopped. But I let him take the lead, and certainly in executing the parts, I can hum it, but he can tell a bassoon player that it's C flat D, E flat, not C, E flat D. And I go, yes.
You know what you like.
And then they play it and it's right. So he had all of that, which was tremendous. And some of the session type guys that we added in were, like himself, Berkeley boys.
Okay.
So they certainly know their dots.
Yeah.
And they can play more or less anything. You've just got to be careful to inspire them to play exactly what you want. Try and get them passionate about it. When you're dealing with musicians like me, I play it with full passion because that's all I got. When you're dealing with musicians who can play anything and play sessions 6 or 7 hours a day, then you've got